Okay, it is 7 o'clock, so I want to stay on time here. I want to thank everybody for coming this evening. This question and answer session is going to be for secondary schools. We did the one for elementary schools last night. That one was recorded and will be on our Facebook page, I believe, tomorrow. This one will be recorded as well, but this is for grades 6 through 12. I want to make sure everybody's in the right place. And so we're going to answer a few questions tonight about our return to school roadmap to return plan. And first, I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank you for taking your time this evening. Thank you for submitting questions and being interested and engaged in this process. I want to talk a little bit about our objective. And I will say that much of this presentation will be similar to last night. There'll be some differences, obviously, based on the age group through scheduling and maybe some extracurricular, but it will be very similar. But the objective is for us to continue to get out in front of you guys and give you as much information, as much transparency as we can, so you can make the appropriate decision for your family, for your children, because there will be some decisions to be made. I do want to tell you, though, that in reading all of the questions that were submitted, so many of the questions were very specific and personal to a one person's situation. And so first, I can't answer those questions in a large group setting like this. And so what we're going to do and what we're going to ask you to do moving forward is those personal questions. We want to encourage you to start to communicate with your school about this plan. Your administrators, they're all here. So they're gonna hear this presentation. They were with us last week. They spent 2 full days working on how to take the plan and implement it for each of their schools. And so your questions that you submitted that were more personal in nature, we are forwarding those to your school, but we also encourage you to reach out to them and start to communicate with them. That's going to be very, very important. I don't think we can make this thing work without there being really good two-way communication between home and school. So I'm going to continue to come to you and give you much broader, more general information. But your schools are the ones that are going to have the most specific information, because they're going to be trying to make it work for their school. So the overview is what I'm doing then is I took all of the questions that were more general in nature and we kind of categorized them, and I'm going to go through and answer them for you. And so the first question is kind of around how do we make decisions on what this plan would look like. And so let me take you back to June, the beginning of June. We certainly understood we were going to have to put a very detailed plan in place moving forward. And so in June, we started working on putting the task force together. That task force included about 70 community members from personnel at school to families to community members. So we felt like we got a good cross-representation of our community. We did a town hall. We had 400 people come to that town hall and give us some really good feedback, and we really used that feedback in our plan. And then we took the surveys that we put out there. And so our task force took all of that information and tried to take everything into account and come up with a plan. I want to remind you the difficulty in coming up with a plan that's going to meet everybody's needs, because as you've heard me say over and over again, and I will continue to say these things, is that we have a broad range of perspective on what they want their families to do. And so we have some families that are ready to send their children back right now. There are other families that will not send their children back until a vaccine is found. And then there's a whole group of people somewhere in the middle of that. And so what I think is most important, and I want to keep talking about this because I want to encourage you to think about our plan around a set of common beliefs I think we all can have. So those common beliefs are three things. I believe, number one, that we can all agree that safety for our students and staff is top priority. We've talked a lot about student safety, but we really want to encourage people to keep our adults in mind. We have 700 adults working in our buildings. We have 4,000 students. All of these people go home to families. And so, it is so important for us to keep everybody in our building safe so our whole community is safe. The second common belief I think we have is that we believe school is the best place for our students to learn. I don't believe that just being online all the time is the best way for our students to learn. I really think that being in classrooms with your teacher and having the connections that you really need are the best way for our students to learn. I do understand, however, because safety is the top priority, that many folks will not want that. And so we will provide an online only or remote only option. And then the third commonality we need to agree upon is that we're a public school, and we are required to follow the guidelines set forth by the Virginia Department of Education, the governor, and the CDC. And so we have all of these elements that we have to follow in order to keep our students safe, but at the same time, try to get as many of our students back in the building as possible. Okay, so that's kind of how we got to this plan. So the first set of questions I'm going to talk about are about the schedule. Obviously, that's a really big one, and we got lots of questions on that. So first, I want to review the schedule and what that looks like. So as you recall, there's an A group and a B group. And so the A group of students will come Monday and Wednesday from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And then their days at home with specific tasks and work to complete will be on Tuesday and Thursday. The B group, their days at school will be Tuesday and Thursday, and their at-home work will be Monday and Wednesday. And so we're going to reserve Friday for a couple of different things. We have CTE courses that we're going to offer in the fall. And we understand the hands-on nature to a lot of our CTE courses and the time that they need to be in school. So we're going to set up opportunities where our CTE teachers can bring their students in for hands-on activities on the Friday. We're also going to reserve time for students that might need some academic supports and also technology supports, because as we know, not all of our students have the best internet. And so we're going to make sure that we have Fridays open for our students that might need to come in and get that work on the internet. And so as far as the schedule is concerned, so if you have Monday and Wednesday at school, you'll have those days to prepare you for your at home on Tuesday and Thursday. The students that are in on Tuesday and Thursday, it'll look a little different. The Tuesday will set you up for Wednesday, but Thursday is going to actually set you up for your Monday at home. So it's going to be a little delayed for those students, but they're going to get the appropriate support. So the other question that comes, or the question that comes most frequently is, how are A and B groups determined, and when are we going to know? And so there are a lot of factors, first of all, that are considered when we determine the A and B groups. But mainly we have to get the information, because we ask all the families, tell us, are you a car rider? Are you a bus rider? And that way we could start to set up our bus routes. And as we set up our bus routes, it then starts to show us who can be at school at the same time, what groups of students. And so schedules then can be formed. And so all of these factors go into how a school can actually schedule. Now, one of the things we're gonna make sure that we do is that we're gonna make sure that people in the same neighborhood on the same bus, you know, that are in the same areas are coming at the same time, that we're going to look at our grade levels and making sure that we have a good half split between the A group and the B group for our classes. We're going to identify siblings, family groupings, and make sure that they're on the same schedule, because we don't want them to be off schedule either. And so this, we'll be notifying you probably in the next 2 weeks. Like I say, it's very difficult to kind of work all these details out. One thing that will help us is that you did not fill out the survey saying what you intend to do with your student this upcoming fall. Please get the school that information. Please call your school and let them know, I'm going to be a car rider or I'm going to be a bus rider, because that's going to help us make those determinations. One of the things I think that is going to be, well, we know is going to be different for our students is the type of schedule that we run. So as you know, in our secondary schools, we run a 7-period day. And so those 7 periods are about 45 minutes long. But the problem with a 7-period day in dealing with this pandemic is that you need to limit the cross exposures that can happen, and the amount of time that our students are out in the hallway in more common areas. So we're going to move our scheduling to a block scheduling. And block scheduling, we use the term 4x4. And so what that means is that students will, in the fall semester, take 4 courses. In the spring semester, they'll take 4 different courses. So they will have an opportunity throughout the year to earn 8 high school credits, because you finish a course in the semester. And that's because you're in the class longer. So you'll be in the class somewhere between 75, 80 to 90 minutes. And so you're getting double the work in those classes. Your students in the spring signed up for 7 periods. So from those 7 periods, the school is now scheduling you into 4 of those 7. The remaining 3 that aren't scheduled in the fall you'll be scheduled into in the spring. And that leaves 1 more course. And so your schools should be reaching out to you right now to start to ask the question and start to figure out what that 8th course is. One of the things that we can use that 8th course for are, for example, our CTE classes that have some time requirements and time in like a lab or hands-on. And so it's possible that you could take, for example, welding in the fall, and then you can use that 8th slot to take it in the spring. That way you can get all of your time in and get the appropriate credentialing and credits in that. So there was a lot of questions about CTE, and yes, we are going to offer CTE. We are going to offer electives. Some of our elective courses, though, obviously you understand, are more conducive to being at school than being at home. And so at-home learning for some of our electives is much more difficult. Another question asked was about our honors and AP courses. Will that be offered online? And so Virtual Virginia does offer all of our, as far as I know at this point, all of the honors and AP courses that we offer at Amherst County High School. Now, if they don't, we will build that course for an online option. But we believe at this moment that Virtual Virginia does in fact allow for, or we have those courses on Virtual Virginia. We got a question about leaving early. As in the past years, only seniors are allowed to leave early. Questions about governor's school. If you're in the governor's school, you should have received some information from them. Amherst County students will attend the governor's school on Mondays. That's the only day they'll be at the governor's school, and therefore those students will automatically be assigned to the B group. So they'll come to Amherst on Tuesday and Thursday, and they'll be at the Gov school on Monday. Early college and STEM students, those are both Central Virginia Community College programs. They have not decided what their fall plan is yet, but I did read in the paper that their local board is making some decisions about that this week. So we should be getting that information very soon and getting that, they should be getting that out to you shortly. The final question about scheduling, and it's not as much about scheduling as it is about grading. And so keep in mind that school this upcoming fall, we're going to be open. The governor says schools in the state of Virginia will be open. Now, whether that's all online or all in school, school's going to be open regardless of what's going on with the pandemic. And so if you remember back to the spring, school was actually closed by the state of Virginia. And so therefore grades weren't a matter of dealing with when those work opportunities were given to our students. Now in the fall, that's a different thing because school's open. So whether you're at home or whether you're at school, you're going to receive grades for the work that you do. We are currently, we have a grading committee that is currently meeting to determine some of the specifics because there will be some differences in how we grade things because there will be some of this online learning. And we want to make sure that we're being equitable, we're being fair with our grading practices. So let's talk a little bit about some of the remote learning questions. And I use the word remote learning because it's important to understand that not all of our students have online capability. And so we want to make sure that we use the term remote, and because you can be at home and not have internet and still do remote learning options. So keep that in mind as we discuss this. But first, let's talk about the first group of students doing remote learning. And they're the ones that are going to be our in-person students. So for example, the A group who's at school on Monday and Wednesday, but they're going to be at home doing remote learning on Tuesday and Thursday. Understand that this will not be live instruction. So you're not going to be sitting at home watching the other class being conducted by the teacher. Your class sits on the Virtual Virginia platform, and there will be work that's given there. There might even be videos to watch on there, but it's not going to be a live feed of what's happening at school. But on those remote days, we want to make sure that there's support to those students. And so there will be a time each day that you'll know when your teacher has available for office hours. So communication can either occur on Virtual Virginia, it can occur by email or even a phone call. But we want to make sure that every day you have the ability to make contact with your teacher. Right? The other type of remote learning is all remote. So you're not coming into school at all. And that's an option that you can take. You have the ability to register for that when our registration forms go out. When you go online and do our registration forms, there will be a question that will ask you if that's the option that you'd like to choose. Students that choose the online option, you'll have full-time online teachers during regular school hours. Once again, this is not teacher on the other end of the camera teaching you live. The instruction will once again happen through Virtual Virginia, but those teachers will set up times periodically throughout the week to check in with their students. And so those are the two differences in remote learning, but understand that every day that you're at home and you need assistance, we're going to set up that opportunity for you. Let's talk about devices. Many of you picked up Chromebooks in the spring. All of our students, grades 6 through 12, will have a Chromebook again. If you don't have them, those distributions will happen once school starts. But one of the first things that's going to happen when you're at school is we're going to make sure that you learn how to effectively use Virtual Virginia. It might be different for some students. We're going to provide online modules for parents so you can learn, so you can help support your students when they're at home. And then there's the connectivity issue that goes along with this. So what are your connectivity options? Obviously, if you have high-speed, reliable internet, it certainly makes things a lot easier, but we know that that's not the case throughout. So what's going to happen for the students that can come, will be in-person learning on Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. When they're in class, the materials that they're going to need on the days they're at home will either be downloaded to a flash drive or to their Chromebook. So you don't have to have internet to do remote learning. We also, if you remember, we have our school parking lots have internet that's being cast out into our parking lots, so you can come to that. We'll have mobile hotspots on 6 of our buses. Those buses obviously will be running all day long, so that won't be available during the day, but they'll be parked in parts across the county, and you can go and sit outside of those and get it. And we're also, as you've heard, we're working with lit communities, and we're working with our county to develop a network that will provide internet access to our students only. That's our first order of business, because that's the most important thing for our schools, is to get all of our students with good internet access, because it's going to make much of what we're trying to do a lot easier. Another question that we received a lot is if we choose the remote learning only option. So I want to do everything at home, but what happens if you find out that it's just not right for your student, or you feel more comfortable about coming back into the building? So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a grace period. We haven't decided on how long that's going to be, but we're going to give you a grace period to choose to drop out of the remote learning only option and come back into the school. Now, we can't do that for the whole semester. We're going to have to put a deadline on that. But do understand this: if you make a change, that change will not happen instantly. There is a lot of moving parts. We're trying to make sure that we only have a certain amount of students in classrooms. And so when we add another student to that mix, it's going to take some time to work out the details. So just, I want you to know up front, be patient. It might be some lag time there. So we want to make sure that we can accommodate your need to change, but we just need you to be patient. Last question in terms of the remote learning is, how will we monitor attendance? Because attendance is something that we're still required to monitor. And even if you're at home all the time, there's still compulsory attendance laws, and we're still required to take attendance. So a couple ways that remote learning can happen: we can look at your time on the computer. The Virtual Virginia can give us that information. We can also base it on completion of products that are being assigned to you. So if you complete what you're being asked to complete, that could count as attendance. And those students that are just doing strictly online at home or remote only, there will be times that teachers will call or set up check-ins with you, and attendance will be taken at those check-in times. So those check-ins will could be virtual, or they could be on the phone or a conference call or something like that. But that's going to be, attendance is going to be taken there, because we understand that if you're at home and you're doing this online learning, you still need adult support. So we want to make sure that we have those in place. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about transportation. First question is about face coverings on the bus. So you might have heard us explain that face coverings will be required on the bus, and here's why. If initially the guidelines said that we had to keep all of our students 6 feet apart, on the bus, 6 feet apart looks like a student in every other seat. And if we were to do that, we could only get about 12 or 13 students on a bus. And as you understand, that's not nearly enough to get our plan to work. And so we've gotten some new guidance that says we can close that down to 3 feet if everybody's wearing face covering. So 3 feet now looks like we can put a student on every seat, as long as they're wearing a face covering. If they don't wear the face covering, they cannot ride the bus. And so that is so we can get 26 students on the bus. And if we can get 26 students on our buses, we can run this schedule. As far as students that have disabilities and are in a special education bus, they have higher needs, and it might not be developmentally appropriate to wear the mask. We're going to make sure that those students will be spread out. They will have that 6-foot distance between them, and so those students wouldn't have to wear a face covering. There's questions also about family members, siblings. They will be allowed to sit on the same seat, and that will actually help us to get a few more students on the bus. Final question was, obviously we've asked you to kind of commit to, are you going to ride, are you going to drive to school, or are you going to get the bus to take you to school? So the question is, what if circumstances change? And they certainly can change. And my child needs to start riding the bus during the year. So if you selected, I want to be a car rider, but your circumstances change and you want to ride the bus, we're going to make those accommodations for you once again. But understand again, there's going to be a time lag between when that can happen. So you're just going to have to be patient and help us have some time and the opportunity to make those changes. Because like I say, there's distance requirements on the buses, and if one student is plugged into a bus that already has 26 students on it, then we have to rearrange and reroute. So just want you to give us a little bit of grace and patience on that. Okay, mitigation strategies. And so there are a lot of questions about mitigation strategies. And so I want to just kind of put them all together and just go briefly through in more detail what those strategies look like. And so one of the things I would encourage you to do is the Chamber of Commerce had myself and Randy Pirtle. Randy Pirtle is the executive director at Blue Ridge Medical on, and we discussed our mitigation strategies, and he discussed mitigation strategies and what they mean from a medical perspective. So if you're looking for good medical feedback on why we do mitigation strategies, go watch that. I think it gives you a lot of good information. But we are doing mitigation strategies because we understand that the second you walk in the door, I can't assure that there's no risk that you're taking. But what I can do is put mitigation strategies in place that will reduce those risks. And so every mitigation strategy we put on top of each other, the more risk we can reduce. And so the first one is social distance. And so we are going to keep our students 6 feet apart. In the classrooms, they're going to be 6 feet apart. When they eat, they're going to be 6 feet apart. And the only time that they're not is going to be on the bus, and we're going to require face masks. And then when they do class changes. And so, of course, we want to limit the amount of class changes. But we're going to encourage students to wear your face mask when that 6 feet is broken down. On the bus, you're going to be required. But in the school building, we're going to encourage you to wear a face mask when you need to. When a teacher is close to you or you're close to other students, we want you to put that mask on, because the science is now showing that originally it was saying that you wear a mask to protect everybody else, but science is now showing that you can also protect yourself. So we want to make sure that we can stay in school and continue having in-person learning. So we want to really encourage using a face mask. Symptom checking. So we are, the guidelines say that symptom checking can occur at home before you come to school. And so we're going to want to partner with parents and families to help us with checking symptoms. So all of our adults that work in our buildings and all of our students are going to be required to do a self symptom check. So every morning you're going to want to look at, do you have a fever of 100.4 degrees or higher? Is there a new cough that you can't explain? Is there shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, sore throats, muscle pain, and all of these things being new symptoms that can't be explained by another condition, say for like asthma, for example. If you have any of these symptoms, we're asking you not to come. If you do, we're going to ask that you fill out some sort of document. We haven't decided exactly what it is to have evidence that you, in fact, did that symptom check before you came to school. We want to talk a little bit about hygiene and sanitation. We're going to have hand washing stations and hand sanitizer stations in every classroom throughout the buildings. And so we're really going to want to encourage washing your hands, keeping your hands away from your face. Sanitation products, we're going to need to buy a bunch of sanitation products to clean off surfaces that are often used. And so a lot of those things need to be in place, because the more we do those things, the less chance we're going to have of COVID-19 being caught in our buildings. The first week of school, we are going to spend time teaching and reviewing these health expectations. We're going to send out some videos later on in the next couple of weeks, so you can see those at home and you can talk about those with your students at home. The next set of questions, this is a fairly large group of questions that we got. And it's the response to positive cases or response to outbreaks. And so what is the school system going to do? And I want you to be very clear about this, is that the Virginia Department of Health, once there is a positive test confirmed, so when a laboratory confirmed test comes back positive, we're not going to know anything until that moment occurs. And when that moment occurs, the Virginia Department of Health will contact me specifically, then we'll contact the school, and they will then begin their investigation. So what they're going to do, they're going to come into our buildings, they're going to figure out where that student or teacher who got the positive test, where they were, what areas led to the most exposure, and then they're going to start doing contact tracing. They're going to learn, they're going to figure out who is at the highest risk and whether or not those students and teachers need to be checked. But what I need to tell you, though, is that there's not an answer for what we're going to do. The Virginia Department of Health has told us over and over and over again, we can't answer that question until we come into the building and investigate. So an investigation might lead to, we got to close a bus down. Investigation might lead to, well, there was only a little bit of exposure in this one classroom, we got to close this classroom. Or it could be the entire school needs to be closed for 72 hours and we need to do deep cleaning. So those things will happen on a case-by-case basis. And believe me, I've asked several times to give us what is going to happen, and they're not going to do it because they say every case is different. Every situation is different. So once a case is confirmed, how are you going to be notified? So the school will be expected to notify families, staff, parents, students, teachers, everybody in the building of a laboratory confirmed case. Understand that this notification is going to be done in a way that protects the confidentiality of the ill individual. But it's also going to tell you clearly what the school is doing in response. So what are the recommendations that are going to be made? What are our actions going to be? So we're going to be as transparent as possible, but understanding that the student or the teacher or the staff member that gets ill, their privacy is protected as well. One thing I want to also tell you is that when that occurs and your child may have been exposed, when the VDH comes in and investigates and they deem that your child was probably exposed, they're going to contact you either through the principal or themselves personally. So it's not going to be some letter that's sent out. So if you get notified by the school system that there was a positive test in the school, that doesn't mean that your child was exposed to it. It means your child was exposed to it if the Virginia Department of Health contacts you, and they will. And so that's what you need to look for in those cases. I wish I could give you the most definitive answers about all of this, but you just have to realize that the Department of Health is going to be specifically involved, and they're going to kind of lead us through the process every single time. But our hope is that we do the right things with mitigation and that we don't have a case, but they're also telling us that it's not if we get cases, it's when. So we want to be ready, and we want to be able to communicate clearly with our parents and our staff and our teachers. I want to talk a little bit about childcare. I want to talk about two groups. So we're talking secondary, so some of the middle school students may have some issues with childcare. What we've done for that is we've put together a group of community members. We are contacting all the childcare providers in the community. They are giving us information back, and we are starting to put this information on our website, so you can go and you can click on that specific area, and it will give you all of the options in Amherst County, what the rates are, when you can bring your child, those kinds of things. For our staff, for our teachers, our staff members, we are going to provide childcare in every building for before and after school, and then we're also going to provide for that Friday that's off. So our employees, you're not going to need to worry about how childcare is going to occur for your school-age child. Extracurricular. So we've just learned some information about extracurricular. This is the last area I'm going to cover. You might have read in the paper that the Virginia High School League proposed 3 options for the sports seasons. And one option was that they flip fall and spring sports seasons, because in their estimation, the spring sports have fewer sports that are high-risk sports. And so they would bring the spring sports over to the fall, and the fall would go to the spring. The other option was to not have any sports seasons in the fall except for the low-risk sports. And there are only 2 of those in the fall, golf and cross country. And then the third option is a kind of a condensed sports season, where in December, January, winter sports would happen. February and March, fall sports would happen. And then April, May, spring sports would happen. That way they're getting them all in, but they're also giving us time to get through this pandemic as well. We will, though, in the meantime, because we do right now, have students doing conditioning and activities. The band has been doing activities at the school. So if you're interested in things like theater and the choir or the Amarecos, those kinds of things, they can be offered, but they're going to have some pretty significant mitigation strategies that are necessary for those students to participate. We will say once the school starts that if you choose the online or the at-home only option, you're not going to be able to do in person. You're not going to be able to come and do extracurriculars, because our understanding is you're choosing the at-home option only because you're worried about contracting the virus or spreading the virus. And so it wouldn't make sense for you then to come and participate in a sport or another activity that has just as much risk to it as being at school. So if you are an in-person student, that's what you choose, you will be allowed to do extracurricular activities. Understand, though, that because of our bus situations, we are not going to be able to provide a activity bus right now. Maybe when things change, that can change, but as we stand right now, we're not going to have the ability to provide that kind of transportation after school. So to close, my intent was to answer as many of the general types of questions so you and your family can make informed decisions moving forward. In the coming weeks, there are going to be a few things that come out. We're going to put out some explainer videos that kind of show what a day in the life of a secondary student will look like. We're going to put out videos like I discussed on the appropriate mitigation strategies, how to wash your hands appropriate, how to put on a mask. We're going to have a virtual open house that we're starting to work on, because we're not going to be able to have our normal open house with everybody coming back in the building. For our 6th grade and 9th grade families, we are going to have a transition day. So the days before school starts, we will have a transition day so we can get our students into the building before all the other students come, so we can help with their transition to the middle and to the high school. These questions, along with the questions that we answered for the elementary, and as questions come, will be put on a fax document on our website. So that's an FAQ, frequently asked questions document, that we'll keep updating. And so if you have a question, go there first. And if it can't be answered, then we're encouraging you to reach out to your school. Like I said, they're all here tonight. They're ready to talk to you. They're ready to kind of help get you through this. And like I say, if we can't communicate, then we're not going to be successful this upcoming fall. And so our goal is to be successful this upcoming fall. We understand it's going to be different. We understand that this plan is not going to make everybody happy. It can't. But we are going to do the very best we can. We care about your children. We care about our adults, and we want to keep them all safe. And so I'm going to close with that. I'm going to ask that you have a great rest of the summer. Please stay safe, and we will be talking to you soon. Thank you and good night.